Okay.
All right. The first question tonight.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Dr. Rob.
I know you're raring to go there.
I am. I've been holding this space. So
I just want to say to everyone, I wanted to thank Tammy because she's been bugging me to do something that's healthy. And so I just decided to get out and walk for an hour. And I do want to say to those of you who are a little bit older, like me, hold on, that there is I really bug myself about I should be working out more, I should be doing more, I should this and that. And I had a colleague, Tammy knows this person, a real expert in eating disorders and nutrition. And, she said to me, because this voice in your head, I don't feel like doing, Tammy doesn't know this, but I do. I don't feel like going there. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't feel like, she said, just walk, just leave your house and walk. That just doing that does so much for your body and your brain. And, I can't turn that one down. So anyway, thank you, Tammy. You brought a flush to my cheeks today. So I was out there in the late sunshine getting some exercise. So thank you.
And some vitamin D. It's all good. So yes. So
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I do the exercise first thing in the morning, so I don't have to listen to the voices all day. So I get up and do it. So, okay. So Dr. Rob, I'm a 35-year-old man with 1 year of sexual sobriety from porn and acting out and 3 months without any masturbation. I want to change my inner circle from complete abstinence to non-compulsive masturbation. What this means to me is masturbation only as a release of sexual energy along with healthy fantasy and not as a means to avoid anxiety or stress. My SAA sponsor and CSAT are supportive of this approach, but I read an article on Psychology Today yesterday that advocates for complete abstinence to truly be free from your addiction. I would love to know your thoughts on this subject and how a recovering sex addict should define healthy masturbation.
Well, the first thing comes up for me is I'd love to see the link to Psychology Today where they said anything was ever negative about masturbation. So I'd love to see the link if you want to let us know where that is, because they don't usually talk about that stuff. So I'm going to go back to my early training with Dr. Patrick Carnes back in the 1990s when I was first training. And this question was asked of him, well, what is healthy masturbation? And he framed it in, I like to frame it in this way, and I'll give you something else as well. He framed it like, if you're going to go out on a date with someone and you wanted to get to know them and spend time with them and you wanted to enjoy them and have them enjoy you, would you, look at a few pictures together and have sex and leave? Probably not. Probably you would go to dinner, you would spend some time. So really the metaphor is about what would masturbation be for you? Would it be a connection to yourself and your own sense of sensuality? Would it be you spent some time with yourself, you went to a movie, you went to dinner, you took a bath, that it was about you and not just about getting off. Because, when you use language like Tammy said it, this is so, like, to me, this is where addicts can struggle. Masturbation is a release of sexual energy along with healthy fantasy. Well, good luck with that. I mean, how are you going to police that? I don't think anybody's in your brain. And then what do you say? Oh, I thought of the wrong thing. Now I had a slip. I mean, I just wouldn't go there. My suggestion is two things: that maybe you write a little bit about what masturbation might be for you in some sort of connecting way for yourself. And the other thing that I would really recommend is that, and certainly no porn, because porn is just there are those of us who can return to masturbation, but porn just reinforces all the problems we had before on steroids. The other thing I would also, there's more to this. So I have questions about if you're in a healthy relationship with someone. I wouldn't be thinking about masturbation unless, and you may not be, but just to the rest of you folks, if you're a male or female sex addict and you're wondering about healthy masturbation, but you're not having sex with your spouse, I would think that would be where you'd want to start. Because I know if I were a betrayed spouse and I heard that my husband or wife had gone back to masturbating, but we haven't even started our sexual life together yet, I think that might bother me some. So, or at least I don't want to talk about it with them. But I'm guessing you're a single person. The other, there's just a few more things. This may be a challenge for you, it may not. The recovery that we do in sexual recovery is not like alcoholism. If you were an alcoholic and you called me and Tammy and you said, I'm just thinking it'd be okay if I went back to drinking beer, I think we would say no, because alcohol is kind of an all or nothing concept. But you're saying masturbation and you really don't know if it's going to be a problem for you. Maybe it will lead to your behaving and acting ways that aren't good for you again, and you'll note that and and exit the masturbation. Or maybe it won't be a problem, that's that. I will say for the single people, one more thing, that some of you guys will just, you know, if you've been sober for a while and you're thinking about connecting with a human being for dating and stuff, but you're spending more time masturbating than dating, that's a problem, because the goal is to go out there and connect with people, not just with yourself. I also say one more thing, Tammy, this will make you laugh. But I've done treatment now, you know, for 25 years with men who have sex problems and also women. And I can count like so many men who, if I said to them, you need to stop being sexual for 2 weeks or a month or whatever that is. And I probably wouldn't go over that because I think more than that is a lot. They've said to me, but isn't something bad going to happen? Like, isn't something going to fall off or break? And I understand that men sometimes think like, isn't it just going to build up and I'm kind of going to explode? And it doesn't. So I just want to say to all the men who are here, it doesn't really work that way. We used to, when we were young, have nocturnal emissions because our body needs to release something. And if you don't masturbate for a long period of time as an adult and your body needs to process fluid, well, that's what it'll do. But you don't have to worry about your body falling apart or you're forgetting how to ride the bicycle or anything like that. It's perfectly fine. Take some time out. And there are good reasons for it, but not forever.
Great answer. Thank you. So the next one. Hi, Dr. Rob. I heard it is helpful to work on being assertive and being able to set good boundaries before dating again. Do you recommend any books on working on assertiveness skills? Is DBT, interpersonal skills, the best method to do this? Or do you know of something better?
Okay, well, this is the most honest answer I can give you. I am so overly assertive that I never really looked into this kind of work. Hold on, my dog is hopefully not going to be doing that. Sorry. Just kidding. In all truth, I think many sex addicts struggle with this issue. And many men with sexual issues struggle with this issue because if we were more assertive, we could really be more honest and more direct. And so I guess I'll give you a few clues. One thing about this is I would not suggest any single person who's a sex addict or a love addict return to dating without a real plan for what dating is and what dating isn't, and when does sex figure into that or not, and a real plan for who you want to go out with, who you don't, so you're really clear on when a first date is just going to be a first date, no matter how attractive they are. I think you need people around you who you, look, I'm really bad at math. That's why I have an accountant who does my math problems when I need them. I'm really good at other things. And one of the things that we're really not good at, almost to a group, is dating and picking the right people for us. We tend to sometimes pick people who mirror more some of our emotional challenges than we would like. And so I say, yes, work on being assertive, and I'll give you a clue about that in a moment. But more important, make sure you have people in your life who will support you in making decisions around dating. So if you tell them I was uncomfortable around this, and they say, you know, that's very serious, I don't think you should date this person again. It's easier to be assertive when you have someone behind you who's saying, that's a good decision. I can, you know, like that. It's harder to be assertive when you're making decisions on your own or just maybe saying at a meeting and then kind of getting it. So the more you have actual people in your life to guide each of your dates, if that's what it is. And by the way, Tammy, I'm sorry, may I go back to the masturbation question?
Mm-hmm.
Here's another great one I used to have as a sponsor. When I sponsored people, they would ask me about masturbation. And I'd be like, you know, it's perfectly fine with me, but you need to call me before and you need to call me after. And I wasn't going to talk them out of it, but you know, this whole thing about, well, am I doing it for the right reasons and all of that? If someone called me and they said, you know, I'm thinking about masturbating and I know you're my sponsor, and I said I would call you, I'm going to say, well, what's going on today? How's your day going? What's happening? What are you, you know, just kind of working with them to see. So what I'm saying in both of these situations is that our romantic and sexual situations choices are best made in concert with people who support us and understand us, because this is where we make bad choices. And these are very fundamental choices: who I'm going to be sexual with, who I'm going to be in a relationship with. And we are not good at that. We're good at working in the relationships, but not so good at picking the people. So it's important to have other people as guides. Okay, assertiveness. Woo. I think there are lots of books on assertion. I think there's lots of stuff you can read. Tammy might have some suggestions. It's really not my area of expertise, but I will say this. Where there is shame, there's no assertiveness. In other words, if there's an area of my life that I feel really badly about, I'm going to cover, duck cover, hide. I'm going to not do well there. And like if I have sexual shame, one of the reasons that people who were molested struggle in the past struggle if someone's hitting on them again, is they feel ashamed, they feel confused. So where there's unresolved issues, it's really sometimes hard to be assertive. And you will always have an easier time being assertive with support. The other thing I was just going to mention about assertiveness is honesty. When I'm feeling really clear about what it is I have to say, where I'm coming from, it's much easier for me to stand behind it. I'll say one more thing. You know, if something is important enough for you to want to make sure you're asserting, then I think you should ask someone else to help you, and not the person that you're saying it to, whether that's a friend or a sponsor or a therapist, somebody to run that by, because maybe they'll say, you can say it this way, or you can try it that way, or, you know, it isn't something you just get. This is something you have to practice and get support for.
So I was thinking the same thing. It's like, if I have a clear, like, this is my boundary, or this is my goal, or whatever, then standing up for that is a whole lot, you know, easier to do. You know, and I think, you know, getting the support, and you were talking about, you know, it takes practice. I was thinking, and you're going to do it wrong. You are not going to do this right. You're not going to do life 100% right. And be kind to yourself. You know, like, at some point you just kind of go, okay, you know, what did I learn from this experience, and take that in without adding to the shame that Dr. Rob was talking about, you know, because it's really easy. I think for me, it's really easy to go, oh, you know, that didn't go well. I didn't do that right. So therefore, you know,
I give up.
Yeah. Or like, I just have no skill with this. But as with anything else, this is a skill building thing, and we get to practice, and we get to get better, and we get to learn. So
I want to say
yeah,
one
please.
more thing about assertiveness. I was working with some folks this weekend in a coupleship where I really felt like the female spouse was very good at asserting herself, but I don't think her husband was very good at listening. And I think he was actually very good at talking her out of what she was asserting, or talking her around it and moving it, like deflecting it. And so for you spouses who, you know, feel like you have to nag, yell, and scream just to get our attention, and you don't, that's not the person you want to be. I understand that, because, yeah, I was really just thinking about this today about, you know, because we worked with these folks this weekend, Tammy, and I won't talk about them at all, but it made me think of couples that have been together for 25 years, let's say. Couples have had a long history together, right? And then sex addiction is uncovered, the affairs, the infidelity, and somehow these people managed to put up with each other for 25 years until all of this was found out. And then what seems to happen in the process is that spouses and partners become aware that they have needs that have not been met in the relationship, because he was cheating, he was here, he was there, and what about me? It seems like when you get to the crisis of, oh my God, you've been cheating on me, what has been going on, and that whole thing explodes, spouses begin to sit back and think, wait a minute, I have needs that haven't been met for a very long time. And then you turn to us, and here we are as sex addicts, 6 months sober, 3 months sober, still trying to figure it out. And you not only want us to be sober, but you want us to be nice people who are understanding and compassionate and think of you. And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you're in early recovery in the first 6 months, you're still with the same person that you live with for 25 years. And what I would, you know, your best hope is that they will be warmer, kinder, and honest. But I don't know if some fundamental change in personality is going to happen because someone gets into recovery. I think that is asking a little too much. But if someone's kind and caring and affectionate and listens, that would be a great start. But Tammy, I don't mean to go off, but you know what I mean? It's like, I think partners come into the sense of, yeah, I need that. I've been needing that. I didn't get this. And they really wake up, and then they start to ask this person for it, like any healthy person would, but that person isn't available to do it. Maybe they never were, or maybe they might be, but it's so early in the first year. And then the spouses come on here and other places, and they say, I don't understand. He's still the same jerk he always was. And I have to say, yep, that's the way it goes. That kind of change takes years to become more empathic, more compassionate, more available, better listener, you know, and there are ways to get there. But it doesn't come just because there's been a crisis in a relationship and you both want to make it work. Yeah, I think that's some reality-based sharing I want to do.
Yeah, well, and I think you're really right. But I think when the infidelity or whatever the behavior is discovered, it causes a partner to go back and re-examine kind of everything, because
Yes.
I hear this often, my whole marriage, my whole relationship has been a lie and whatever. So then I think they're looking and dissecting all of that and more able to tally up all the places where my needs have not been met. So I think you're 100% right.
And that's all very legitimate. I mean, that's wonderful for spouses to come in touch with, wow, I've needed a lot more attention, affection, validation, or just someone being around. On the other hand, I don't know that the addicts are always in a place to be able to deliver. And that doesn't mean they're bad people or they don't love you, or it's just that they were broken like this. Look, you put it up with it for 25 years, but now you're aware of things and you're not so happy with what you've been putting up with and you want more and good on you. It just takes us longer than you might want to get there, in my experience.
So next question. We are dealing with infidelity. Sounds like could be cyber sex addiction that began as porn addiction. We have to wait 2 months to see a CSAT in our area. Any suggestions on resources that we can use in the meantime? I feel like we are making it up as we go along based on what we have been reading on your websites.
Okay, so Tammy has to answer that question.
I was going to say, let me. Okay, so you are on the website. You are here. Great. There's betrayed partner groups. There's multiple men's groups. There's so much content on here. If you haven't tapped into the amazing podcast series, Sex, Love, and Addiction, all of that, I'll put a link in the chat, but all of that you can find on our, on our website. This is recorded. We have tons of people that watch these, and I can't even tell you, I don't even know how many previously recorded webinars there are, but you can watch hours and hours and hours of
us.
And not just us, Dr. David Fawcett and then Kim Buck with Codependence and John Taylor and Kristen Snowden and
Mm-hmm.
There's some amazing
voices
there that I think you'll find super healing, or at least able to hold the space for you, between now and when you can see the.
I want to say something too.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add to that. I don't know that everyone understands that just like this group, we do 14 of these a week or 10 of these a week with volunteer therapists, and they're all different. So yes, I'm here every Monday night, and those of you come to hang out and chat, that's great. But tomorrow afternoon, there's going to be a female spouses group, and another day there's going to be a webinar for couples, and this is all free. It's all online, and what we do live, we then record for the most part where we can to protect your confidentiality. It's all free. This is our service. We give this away. So right on yes, there are blogs accessible on the site. I've been writing for psychology for 8 years. I have tons. There is the podcast, but there's also ways to connect with people. And that really is the best advice I can give both of you is we heal the fastest and the best when we're within our own peer groups who are going through similar things. If I had a family member who had some Hodgkin's disease, I'd probably go to a Hodgkin's disease group to understand how those people are dealing. And if you are a spouse who's dealing with infidelity, you should be in a group with other spouses who are dealing with infidelity. That's actually more helpful to you than staring at the person who cheated on you and asking them questions. Trust me. You'll find your way. Tammy, I've written a bunch of books.
I was just going to say, and if you haven't read Out of the Doghouse yet, I highly encourage you to get that. That's written for men who have been caught cheating. So,
but I have this obsession with writing, so I've written about 8 or 9 books, and there's a book called Sex Addiction 101. I mean, that's about as basic as what this problem is, how it works, where it comes from. There are many, many ways through us and elsewhere that you can really educate yourself now about these issues. And I'm glad you're going to go see a professional who is trained. That's really important. But if you're in a crisis, if you're really in a crisis, you should maybe call them and ask if there's someone that they can refer you to now, just to get a little bit of support until you can get to that specialist.
Yeah. And I don't want to, great that you've got an appointment, but that appointment isn't going to fix everything. That's just the beginning of the journey. And I feel what I'm reading in this is we're hanging on till 2 months just to get there. And I'm telling you, like Dr. Rob just said, it's a year or more. So I'm going to, because we do run a treatment center. So Seeking Integrity Los Angeles, if you want information about, I think the most expert treatment for sex addiction, relationship issues, or co-occurring sex addiction and chemical dependency, don't hesitate to reach out. I will suffice it to say that, but on seekingintegrity.com, you can read more. But I'm glad you got an appointment. There is a plan, and there's a whole bunch more resources that'll help hopefully at least tide you over. Okay, next question. Dr. Rob, you have talked about the importance of commitment before. I'm more and more aware that I have major problems in this area. I'm mid-50s, a year old, and never had a long-term relationship. 6 months was maybe the longest, don't even remember. I've been coming online groups since last summer and have yet to have more than 4 or 5 days of sobriety. Porn addiction is my primary. How can I work on this? I'm feeling discouraged. It seems like everything in my life is really screwed up, and realize how much goes back to the lack of positive, hopeful attitude and commitment. Help, I just don't want to. Help, I just don't want to. I understand the phrase.
Well, I mean, there's a lot there. Do you want to start, Tam? I mean, I think that's such an open question. There's so much that we can.
Yeah. I mean, I hear the discouragement. So first of all, thank you for continuing to connect here. You know, that is a point of connection. And I think you said that you are going to the online group. So hopefully you're going to some drop-in groups and making connections, you know, from that standpoint as well.
You know, the first thing that came to my head, and I don't know this person at all, is get out of your house.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know if you go to live support groups or meetings, but I work with porn addicts who get involved in 12-step programs, SAA, SAA, SLAA, and I remember days where someone would have to have a friend from that program sleep on their couch just to keep them off the computer that night, or they'd have to go stay at a friend's house. You know, I think maybe I'm going to be a little assertive now, but I think this is, you know, it's kind of like what Tammy said, when you get that therapy appointment, the therapy appointment doesn't fix it. What the therapy appointment does is it gives you the direction, the hope, and the structure to go forward, but you got to take that ball and run with it yourself, you know? And I do hear a little bit in here, kind of a sense that you could be doing more. And, you know, and if you say, well, I'm just really stuck with the porn, it's like, you know, there are many ways to get away from the porn. There are many ways to make sure people are around. There are many ways to keep yourself accountable. You can be at 12-step meetings every day, every night, whether it's online or live. I think the biggest answer to the question you're asking here is, to me, what I hear you saying is, I'm a lonely person and I spend a lot of time alone and I struggle with relationships and I'm not even sure whether I want one or not, but I might. And by the way, it's getting a little late. Like if you want to have, and I'm not saying it's never too late to have a relationship, but it can get too late to learn how to tolerate another person in your life. And we get a little crotchety after a while. So, you know, but you got to start somewhere. And the place that I started, and I think most of us start, is in the rooms of 12-step, where it doesn't cost any money. And I can sit my body in a chair and I have to deal with people's opinions and feelings. And I have to be assertive. I have to work on being a human being around other human beings. And you will not get that at home and with your computer. So I am not, Tammy will tell you, I've written books about how supportive I am of our internet life. All of this work we're doing here is supportive of internet life. But if part of your life is being impaired by the internet, you need to put your phone down, get out of the house. I would ask you, and I'm not saying this is a cure, but I'd be really curious if this person, Tammy, are they on a sport team? Do they go to the theater? Do they go hiking? Like what kind of hobbies? Are they want to go back to school? Like sometimes we have such a focus on the problem. I would want to know, what are the things you're doing to start enjoying your life and getting out and connecting to other people? But what I know about compulsive masturbators to porn is it's a very, very lonely life. And by the way, everything in you is going to say, well, that's nice, Dr. Rob, but I'd rather stay home and eat sherbet and watch porn. I get that. I would too. But the reality is if I want the life that I want to have, I have to work for it. And no one is going to give you that, but we will all stand up and applaud for you if you take those steps. So get out of your house, start connecting with people on every level, socially, recovery, therapy. Get out of your house, man. That is the only solution.
Yeah, and I concur, and a lot of it is interrupting the current system. If this is what I do all the time, then you're the hamster on the wheel doing the same thing all the time. And of course it's comfortable, but it's the hamster on the wheel in the little cage doing nothing different.
Right.
And,
you're not going anywhere.
right. And, like when you just said, stay home and watch porn and eat sherbet, I'm like, that would be hell to me, to be confined to a space,
Well, now it would be hell to you,
right.
Tammy, because now your world is very big. But when
Yes.
you were an addict, you were perfectly happy to sit in some dark apartment and drink. That was fun.
Absolutely.
So I get
no,
that.
I totally get it. But I'm just saying, yes, things have shifted that much. Yes. So, there are non-threatening ways of joining groups, like, taking a class where there's a lecture series and you're learning about something different. And then you're in a room with other people. And can you tolerate being in a room with other people? Great. I 100% agree with recovery, groups. Even start with a speaker meeting. Start with a speaker meeting where you don't have to say anything. You can just start going. But, anything that disrupts this, get up. Dr. Rob went for a walk right before this. Great. Anything that is different and gets you out of yourself and out of your house. So a long time, I've shared this on another webinar, but a long time ago, somebody at a meeting said, you're a real small package when you're all wrapped up in yourself. And I've remembered this all these years later. And at first I was like, and then I went, oh my gosh, I get it. It's like, I've got nothing to give if I'm so, wrapped up into me, and it makes my world really small. And to me, the world is an amazing place. And, I like to learn more. So I invite you to step out.
And I hope that what Tammy and I are both giving you is, because I think we're trying to inject it, is hope that, hope with a caveat that I can't tell you how often people come to see me or go to our treatment center and they're just looking for the therapist with the magic wand, the right one for them, so we can wave it over them and make them better. And this is not a destination. It really is a process, and some days are good and some days are crappy, even this far down the road. But there is something about making sure that you're showing up for your own life that I am not hearing in your share, and I hope that you find a way to do.
So you asked about the Psychology Today article, and someone was gracious and shared the link, and it is Sam Louie, and he said, in my own work with clients, a no masturbation policy is requested, as I believe masturbation is still another means to sexually act out. I also ask clients to consider what motivations may be leading to masturbation. In other words, is it done as an isolating behavior to avoid his partner, if it's done for non-sexual reasons such as boredom, fear, anger, loneliness, or sadness. All of this information is clinically useful to help clients better understand their triggers. This is just one paragraph in the larger, but anyway, I want to give you that context.
So we know Sam Louie. He's a friend of ours and a lovely guy. I could tell you all his story, but I'll let him tell it. Actually, I think I did a podcast.
You did a podcast with him.
He's got a podcast, but he knows his stuff. I think that it depends on where you are in recovery. In the very early stages of recovery, I don't know when I'm having a bad day or I just want to go masturbate. And so it is best to maybe give that some time. But over time, we want to restore healthy sexuality where we can, not eliminate it. So it really just depends on where you are in the process.
Okay. So the next question. Hi, Dr. Rob. Thank you for your service. I was wondering, what is considered healthy fantasy?
That's a good question. Do you think there's a context here? What is healthy fantasy?
I'm thinking it's with porn or masturbation. Actually, with more masturbation. Let's go with, with
so
masturbation.
I guess this is a tough question, Tammy, because I got spouses in the room and they're not going to necessarily like this. So here's the reality. You're not going to be able to fully control your sexual fantasies. And when you're enjoying your own sexuality, you may have them, and they may be about another person or they may be about another situation. And unfortunately, that's just part of being human. If you try to say, well, I'm only going to masturbate with my breasts in my, that's just not how it works. And I don't think we can police our brains. And what they say in some of the 12-step programs, it will take years for the lust of the mind to drain away. And I think what they're saying is, this compulsive need to be sexual in order to, or to sexualize everyone and everything in order to, tolerate my world, that will go away. But healthy sexual desires and thoughts of other people may come up when you're masturbating. So what I do think is problematic is, well, certainly if you're an offender, and you have arrestable or non-consensual behaviors, and you masturbate to fantasies of that, you're reinforcing a behavior with pleasure and thought that you really don't want to reinforce because you've been arrested for it or gotten in trouble for it, and that's not a good idea. Um, it's such a, Tammy, everything in me as a therapist wants to say there's no fantasies that are wrong, on some level, because fantasy is just fantasy. It doesn't really mean anything. But I also understand that as a sex addict in recovery, you kind of want to think about what is okay to, I don't think fantasy is the right word. If something goes through your head, it goes through your head. If you decide to obsess about it, that's a whole different story. You want to build a whole masturbation experience around the 3 women you were having sex with when you were doing drugs last year, and you want to focus on that, that probably isn't your best choice. It's not exactly hopeful, encouraging, or life affirming, and it might lead you back to what you were doing. But I sort of draw the line a little bit at telling people how to control or manage their fantasies. Certainly it's unhealthy to reinforce fantasies that involve non-consent or any kind of offending. But what your fantasies are, if your wife or your husband could see all your fantasies, they probably would have left you a long time ago. There are some things that are just in our heads. My fear is, okay, one more thing. If you are having fantasies and then you find yourself wanting to act out on those fantasies, or if you've gotten away from acting out in a certain way and then you've been masturbating and you find yourself wanting, that's a problem. So Tammy, anything about this? That one threw
No,
me.
I
I really
think
know
that,
what to say.
no, I think you handled it well. And again, I think it's one of those things where, talking with your sponsor and get, so like, having a plan, like even the information I just read from, from Sam Louie, it's like, is there boredom, fear, anger, what's going on behind it, that I think is helpful.
This is really, thank you, Tammy. This is it. It's more about pay attention to what your fantasies are. I had a fight the other day with someone who's working on our painting on our house, and I was fantasizing about throwing rocks. And I thought, why am I fantasizing about throwing rocks? Oh, because I want to beat this guy up. Fantasy is a useful function. It allows us to get some of our feelings out in a way that doesn't mean that I was going to hit my contractor, But when it becomes something you act out in ways that are problematic or that would deeply hurt someone you're with, you don't want to reinforce that. You want to move away from that.
Okay, next question. Can you give me some guidelines for healthy boundaries for a partner in a long-term marriage with an addict who is beginning his journey of sobriety recovery?
Guidelines and boundaries?
Yes.
Some
guidelines for healthy boundaries as a partner for someone who is just starting their journey. What's going to be...
Right. Okay, so let me just start with sex. I say this a lot, but I'll say this. Sometimes partners, frequently in fact, when you start to understand what's been going on with this person in your life, that they've had this problem and that they're aware of it and they're being more honest, and sometimes we will start to feel sexual toward them, even if some of what we're hearing we don't like, because there's something about their vulnerability, their honesty, that we know the truth now, we feel drawn to them. And so one of the boundaries I always suggest that couples take is don't be sexual unless you trust each other. So until trust is reestablished, until you really believe that that man or woman is not going to go out and cheat on you and lie to you, I don't suggest you have sex with them. So sexual boundaries have to do a lot with questioning, why do I want to do this with the person? If they've hurt me and I'm really angry at them and it's been a month, is it really time to be sexual? I really want to have sex with them, but do I trust them? Do I think that they're, safety is a big issue. Also, just a really basic one, go get an STD test. If you're in early relationship recovery with a sex addict, go get a full STD panel. You can get it with some doctor you've never met if you want to go to an urgent care, but get it, because a good number of the spouses that I work with end up with chlamydia or some kind of fungus, or they've got HPV, or, just stuff. And, that is a boundary I want to start with, is my own physical health. Tammy, you might go into more some emotional boundaries, or, like, how do you handle if you're angry? Do you keep them around? Do you throw them out? How about those boundaries? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, yeah. And you said this is, who is just beginning his journey. So yeah, the things that, keep you physically safe. And then there's also emotional safe. And, you have every right to be angry. You have every right to be grieving, the loss of what you thought you had in this person with, this partner that was supposed to have your back at all times. So I think you creating some safe space for yourself, and whether it's, a therapeutic separation within the house, or you just go, I need to go do this for myself. And it's like, go have coffee with a girlfriend, or whatever it is that you need to do to have safe space, and take care of yourself. It's very easy. We talk all the time, addicts lie, addicts manipulate. And we want to show you look over here at this. You don't need to look at that. So learning to trust you more of yourself, and to get feedback and support in guiding that, I think is a really important boundary, and not just listen to the voice of somebody, yakking at you with their message.
And I want to add to that, sometimes you couples, you guys, you're like, how do we restore trust? And it's like, you want to, how do we get closer? How do we, and really, I think that the healing is a slow drip, drip, drip of little things every day. And I mean, and especially in our recovery, and this is what I would suggest you think about, is he or she coming home on time? Do they respect that you might have feelings if they're late because of what they used to do when they were late? Are they letting you know where they are? Are they being defensive, or are they being open? Things that will make you feel more comfortable. Those are the kind of boundaries I'd be setting. It's like, since I really don't want you going on business trips without checking in with me, whatever. I really don't want you to. Try to think about boundaries that will make you feel safer. Because right now, in some ways, you are in the driver's seat in a good way. You get to talk more about what will keep you safe and keep you in. And now I wouldn't necessarily present that to this person. I might run them by a friend, or run them by a therapist, or run them by a clergy, or someone to determine like how well that will work. But little things matter. And I would be looking for this person to show up for the little things. Are they helping? Are they sharing? Are they a part of the family? This is the bare minimum of early recovery.
So the next question is actually a continuation of our saga. I'm the woman who has been dating, sober with a plan and a posse, etc. I'm going to see him tomorrow for the 4th date. We have not really even talked about what we're looking for, or our past relationships. It's very surface conversation and hanging out. How do you suggest I take the conversation a little deeper? Thanks for all your help.
So let's say Tammy and I are you and this person, okay? And it's okay because Tammy's in Arizona, and I'm in California, so it's all good. But hey, Tammy, I've been having a really good time lately. How about you?
Oh, I've so enjoyed your company and getting to know you.
I was thinking about, having these feelings about wanting to take it a little bit deeper. I wonder how you might feel about that.
Well, I think so my natural reaction would be, what do you mean by deeper?
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think I think at this point, I'm attracted to you. I like you. I'd like to get to know more about your history, where you come from, what means something to you. I want to let you know a little bit more. I guess I want to get a little closer to you as a person.
And to me, that would be a great way of doing it. And I'd be very receptive to.
That would feel good, right?
Yes.
Like, I want to know you better.
I would want to know you too. I've been thinking the same way.
That's nice.
No, I mean, really, now if the other person goes, yeah, no, I just want to hang, just superficial. Obviously that's data too.
Or I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
It's not going well.
It's all about taking my selfies of me. So.
By the way, we were asked about assertiveness. This defines assertiveness. I have an interest and a need. I'm going to express it in a way that's clear, but that doesn't make anybody feel bad or do anything that they don't want to do. And then I'm open to what comes back. That is assertive.
Yes.
So,
it's not, and like what we were talking about earlier, if it's just data, if that person goes, yeah, no, really not, that's no reflection on you. That's just data. And, great. Now, I will take that to a different location, but I can't wait to hear next week. So
one more thing though,
yeah.
There's a question that you'd never ask someone ever when you're dating or breaking up or any of that, which is, in my opinion, and it's the question we always want to know, which is, what didn't you like about me? Or what, it's really like, it's poison for us, because some of us just want to understand why it didn't work out and the truth is like what that didn't work for that person, and you think, oh God, yes, I am like that. That might be the very thing that works for the other person. So it just didn't work for that person. And dating is a numbers game, meaning you might have to date 8 or 10 people a year, maybe more, before you meet someone you actually get along with. And for you married and committed people, I just want to remind you, when your relationships are hard, that it's really hard to find somebody out there who can actually put up with us. And especially you sex addicts and love addicts out there who are thinking, oh, if my partner whines at me one more time, and I'm thinking, really? I don't think you realize what it's like to be single out there, but I'm glad to remind you, if you'd like to know, it could be 8 or 10 years before you meet somebody again that you want to really live with or spend time with. So rolling the dice around a committed relationship is not a good idea, in my opinion. And you've already done it a few times if you're an addict.
True.
More questions?
Yes. Continuation of the commitment question, sort of positive mindset. How can I really believe that recovery is possible? I started reading books and never finish. I start programs and don't finish. I get bored and find doing the work to be really difficult. Somehow I did get a master's degree, pre-internet and porn addiction. Thoughts?
Well, first of all, I just wonder if you have attention deficit disorder and if you've been examined for that, because people who start things and don't finish them and get really excited about projects and then forget about them and are often people who have ADD. And
and especially with porn addiction, because that, like then it's like everything's got to be fast.
Well, we actually have a 20 or 25% correlation. It's the only mental health disorder that has actually been proven to show up in sex addicts and porn addicts. Is we have about 20 to 25% of us have ADD, which speaks to the part of our brain, really primitive early part, where there is damage from our early life. But my second answer is one day at a time, one step at a time, one piece at a time. I relate, whoever, sister, brother, whoever you are. I remember when I started at meetings and I thought, well, these are nice. These are really nice people, but I've never really followed through on anything in my life that wasn't for someone else. And so I don't think I'm going to do this either. But the calling of those people's voices and their stories and how deeply I related to them, I felt like I was home for the first time in my life on some level over time. And so, yeah, I just think it's just about taking the little pieces and not looking so much at the big picture.
That's exactly what I too have ADHD, and no big surprise. And what I had to do, and I still do this, is because it can be overwhelming to look at the whole thing. But if I just do the next right thing, and it's breaking it down, you don't have to do the whole 12-step program. You just have to read that page of that step and just do that. I mean, there's so many ways to break it down. You don't have to read the whole book. Read a chapter. And then, wow, I've accomplished that. Okay, then do another chapter. Whatever it is, break it down to smaller pieces where you are accomplishing it. Because that, to me, started building my confidence that I actually could. And then eventually the whole book was read.
Very nice.
Okay. So next question. Thank you so much. I'm the one that asked about what can we do during the next 2 months. I have a therapist. I am the betrayed wife. I see her next week. Perhaps my husband can see someone before a 2-month mark. Thanks for the advice. Would you suggest he work on the sex addiction workbook you have? Is absolutely. The sex addiction workbook and the workbook are, great primers for, getting started. And if you haven't read Codependence yet, strongly encourage that. And if he can tolerate reading Out of the Doghouse as well, I mean, it's a lot, but just
the more you can read, the more, the more you can read, the more groups you go to, the more information you can get, and pick and choose what really feels right for you.
Yes. And hope, go ahead.
Well, this may sound silly coming from someone who's sort of like one, but don't look for gurus. Look for people who have good information. Some things I talk about, they're really great. Some things I don't know anything about. Make sure you are gaining knowledge from experts in whatever area you can. You'll find your way.
And this is a really complex thing. Most therapists are not trained in addiction, let alone.
Most therapists are not trained in sex.
True. So not trained in sex, not trained in addiction, and really not trained in, a sexual addiction and intimacy disorders. So it does take a specialized, and unfortunately, too many therapists dabble in this or think they can help, and it ends up causing challenges. So So trust your gut when you go. And if the therapist, is speaking from a lens, along the codependence line where it's, you love this person, we want to support you, great. If they're wanting to talk about your family of origin, your childhood trauma, run, don't walk, and email me and I'll help you find somebody else. But I'm hoping good things. So don't get me wrong on that. So, okay. And how long after this session before you post?
Oh, I wanted to interrupt you, Tammy.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We have 9 questions in 10 minutes. So I really want to answer questions from people who have not asked one already. And some of these are continuations, which is nice, but there are people who really want to ask a fresh question. And I want to give them a chance. So thank you.
Yes, I can type the answer to that one. So there was one in the chat. I'm going to go back to this one. I have been told my sex-addicted husband has eroticized rage transferred to myself, his partner, myself as his partner, his daughter and granddaughter, and he acts out on his birthday. Can you explain that to me?
Which part?
What is, I'd say, what is eroticized rage and why would it be transferred?
I wrote a blog about eroticized rage on Psychology Today 2 or 3 weeks ago. And if you want to find it and send them the link, then that will explain eroticized rage. I don't know how this person might have meant that it implied, or, I don't know what it meant in your situation. I give a general description of it. And there was a second part to that question, Tammy, that I also wanted to answer.
It was, and he acts out on he acts out on our birthday. Please explain that to me.
Yeah, listen, we act out when we get fired. We act out when we get a raise. We act out when we go on vacation. We act out when you're having a baby. We act out when we have any kind of emotional stress that healthy people would understand as a need to connect. And we understand and see as a reason to isolate and go have sex. So why wouldn't I act out on my birthday? I'm acting out just like drinking and using. Tammy will tell you it was it's the drink because I feel so miserable, it'll make me feel better. And it's the drink because I feel so great, it's going to make me feel better. But it's all about making me feel something that I'm not, or not being where I am. Yeah.
Okay. So somebody asked, when will this be posted? I'm sure that Scott will post this recording tomorrow. He's pretty good at getting those on. I recently established no contact with my qualifier, who happened to be my mentor all throughout my college career. How do I grieve the loss in this relationship? I often slip into euphoric recall and fantasizing about them wanting to contact me. I know I should focus on establishing new relationships, but anytime I begin to make connections with someone new, my mind reverts to old addictive behaviors, sometimes even before I realize it. Examples of addictive behaviors include mistaking kindness for attraction, ruminating, replaying interactions to try and hold onto dopamine, and sexualizing, objectifying the person.
Someone asked me this recently in a session. They said, I know I shouldn't have been dating this person or seeing this person, having sex with this person, but we spent a lot of time together and now I have these feelings about them and I probably shouldn't have these feelings about them and it's probably all bad and all of that. And hold on, what I wanted to say about that was, you may still have an attraction to this person. You may still have feelings for this person. That may have been a meaningful relationship to you. So rather than saying, what's wrong with me that I still think about this person when they hurt me, I think you might give yourself a break and say, you know what, when I attach to people and connect with people, right or wrong, I do it deeply. And, just because they weren't the right person for me doesn't mean I'm not going to still be grieving the loss of them. And I think if you look at it that way, like more you're grieving a loss rather than you've got to get rid of these thoughts of him, I think you'll be a lot better off. The other thing that if this works for you, because this also came up as I said, can you pray for him? Can you wish him well? Can you, I find that when we're thinking about someone and longing for what they gave us, we're kind of thinking about them like an object. Like, what can I get from them and why aren't I getting it anymore? And in a different way, you might just wish that person well in their life going forward and sort of flip the script on how you think about him. So that every time you start having that longing, you might say to yourself, well, that's a little selfish. Why don't I just wish him well? And turn it around into an affirmation. And let yourself grieve. I don't know if it's obsessive, crazy thinking that he comes up in your mind, or maybe you're really connected to him. And when you start dating someone new, those connections come up. That's just human being human. So you might need a little more time to grieve. You might need a little bit more support in the transition, but Sounds healthy to me.
Yeah, and grieving is a process. So, okay, so somebody just asked me to elaborate on my run, don't walk away from the therapist to ask you about your past and trauma. So here's what I get a
Wait,
lot.
Tammy, can I say one thing before
Yes,
you answer that
please.
question?
Yes.
I was confused because I think with addicts, we very quickly and early start talking about early trauma in childhood in order to have some kind of framework and foundation for what happened to them. We may not go into it early enough, really work on that stuff early because they may not be emotionally ready, but we do bring it up right away. So you, Tammy, weren't referring to addicts. You were talking about the treatment for partners.
Right. So thank you for clarifying. But yes, and thank you for asking about that. And I say some of these things kind of flip, and I shouldn't. But I get the calls from the people who are like they've been traumatized, villainized, victimized by, I think, well-meaning therapists because, they go for support because their loved one is a hot mess and they're going, what do I do? And the therapist is going, well, let's talk about, what was your relationship with your father? And they're like, and they leave feeling unsupported and like there's no hope. And so what I'm saying is if the person, if the therapist is, looking at the situation you're in as a crisis and is helping you in the moment with that, great. If eventually you want to talk about, stuff in the past, fine, but not while you're going, I don't even know what to do.
Maybe I can make it a little easier too, Tammy.
Please.
I mean, we are, I'm not a fan of the codependency model. And that's why I wrote a book called Prodependence, because I think there are other ways to look at partners and loved ones of addicts than simply as troubled people who were destined to find other troubled people. So, and especially in the earliest stages of working with a partner, I want them to know how much I appreciate their strength in hanging in there with this troubled person and how much I admire their willingness to adapt themselves to a difficult situation. And under codependency, all those things were seen as bad. Well, if you're living with a troubled person, you should get out of there and you should work on yourself and focus on why you ever found them in the first place. And, I just think all that self-examination and sort of analytic stuff is really not for spouses in trauma and crisis because her husband just stopped drinking or his wife just stopped gambling, or what you guys need is you just need a lot of support and validation, and you've already been through the mill. You don't need to sit down with a therapist and examine your childhood. And so this is why I wrote Prodependence, and Tammy is a very big fan, which I appreciate.
I am,
because
holding up the book.
We have seen many people who come to us who feel they were traumatized double by the therapist. First, they found out their husband or wife was wounding them by infidelity, whatever it is, and then they're in a crisis. That person maybe finally gets the treatment, and then the partner comes in and says, oh my God, they finally got the treatment, things are going to get better. And instead of hearing, wow, good for you, you hung in there, that must have been hard, they hear, let's talk about your childhood and examine what's wrong with you. And that is just not a model that works particularly. I have feelings about that. So that's what Tammy was referring to, is that if you're in a crisis, if your partner is in early recovery, if you're dealing with a problem that's very specific, like addiction, which you need to really understand and go through certain really specific paths for, and your therapist is saying to you, well, tell me about what life was like when you were 6 and how did you and your mom get along, or even how did you and your husband get into this mess together? I would walk away, walk, not run, because that's not what you really need in the early stages of this. As Tammy said, 6 months, a year in, you want to say, gee, I wonder how I missed this, or what am I vulnerable to? Great. If you want to, great. If you don't, fine. But it's not our job as therapists to force you to self-examine at the very point, I believe, which you're in a huge crisis. And that is when you're first really discovering all this. So we're just not fans of I'm just not a fan of codependency.
Nor am I. I concur. So we're not going to get to everything, but I do want to answer this because I think this is really helpful. I am new in recovery. And wondering when I should reveal I am a sex addict to a person I am dating. The first date, second date, third, never, just kidding.
Which part were they kidding about?
I think the never, but.
I'll give you since you are new, and I think newcomers really do well with clear rules. And when we get a little further along, we can be a little bit more. So I would say to you that when you start exclusively dating this person, I'll give you 2 rules. One, if you start exclusively dating them, meaning you're saying it's just us now, we're not going to date other people, and or before you have sex with them. So either in the process of just start determining you're going to be exclusive, and or before you have sex with them. Because, well, first of all, I wouldn't want to tell anyone I was a sex addict who I just had sex with, because Lord knows they'd be freaking out about what disease I gave them if they didn't even understand. You know, they're not going to understand anything about that. Second of all, I don't want to tell somebody that who I'm probably not going to invest deeply enough to have it really make a difference. So I think when you feel that there's commitment now, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to say that so loud. Now, it is okay to say things like, you know, I've been to a lot of therapy. I had a challenging family. You know, I look forward to us really moving forward so we can talk about, you know, I think you don't want to just like, hey, I'm a sex addict. You thought I was great and everything was fine. But, you know, I think it's fine to let someone in on the generalities. You know, I've been in therapy for a while. Yeah, childhood really sucked, or whatever it is you need to say. But I am a sex addict, I think requires having a book in hand for them to read, like Sex Addiction 101 or something simple. Maybe you want to turn them on to the podcast so they can listen to all the professionals that I interview on sex, love, and addiction. Maybe you want to invite them to come and listen to one of these groups. I have worked with people who said, well, I told her I was a sex addict. Yeah, you did that 6 months into dating for 5 minutes. Now it's been 12 years of marriage and she barely remembers that. And you never really went into what it was. So, you know, telling someone and then really telling someone again is also a process. And I think it begins with dipping your toe in the water of, you know, I have issues. I'm not perfect. And I hope you know that. I have to take this call, Tammy.
Well, I'm going to elaborate on this. So
Hey, doctor, I will be with you in 1 second.
I am new to recovery, means I need to have a plan, and dating he's going to check out. So I need to have a plan. I need to work with my therapist, my sponsor, all of the people. But the first bunch of time, there's really no need to date. There's more getting to know yourself and getting to know who you are. So projecting into, oh, I need to learn how to date and need to figure this all out when you're brand new in recovery. And I'm going to clarify too, there's a difference between sobriety and recovery. Sobriety is I haven't acted out in X amount of time. And, you know, and for most people, I had one therapist that I worked with before, and he said, he was hard, I won't use the word. But he said, the first 90 days is just abstinence. Then after that, then they start getting into sobriety and then eventually into recovery. So there's this period of time where your brain is just, you know, trying to change. And that's probably 90 days. And that's just to sort of take it back to neutral. And then needs to be a plan about what dating will be. And, you know, we're listening to somebody else who's been in recovery for a while, you know, and I don't remember the exact details, but it's been a while. And then, you know, is starting a healthy dating plan. And there's a plan for it. So it isn't like, oh yeah, I'm just doing the same thing I used to do. I'm in recovery now. So I'd encourage you to be patient, be kind to yourself, but also work with your therapists and your trusted people in your recovery program so that you have a plan for what that would look like for you. So, okay, thanks all so much for being here tonight. We look forward to having you join us for all the other opportunities. There's podcasts, webinars, drop-in groups. So please keep coming back. Dr. Rob will be on again next Monday night. And Karen is subbing in for Dr. David on Wednesday night. She does a great job. So join her there. We'll see you online soon. Thanks.